I get discouraged for sure, and I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to COS Indiana Live. Hope everyone's doing okay this evening. Hope everyone had a great Mother's Day yesterday. I know we certainly did. So glad to have you on board this evening. And I want to get right to bringing on my co-host, Ken Kashuba. Hello, Ken.
Hello, Dale. How are you?
Just fine, just fine. Oh, I see you've designated yourself as the host, I guess, here. Okay, well.
You forgot to change that.
We got to change that back, don't we? That's okay. That's okay.
That's my Bible.
Ken will be the co-host with me tonight, and he will be monitoring the different comments and questions that we get from our viewers this evening. So if you are one of those individuals viewing our broadcast, feel free to submit a comment or a question in the chat area, and Ken will be monitoring those and will let us know if there's one that we need to address. So Ken, we always like to check the numbers here. You know, we're closing in on that number 200. This is number 198.
And 198. Gonna have to get the confetti ready.
Yep. I hope you're getting that ready, aren't you?
Well, we'll go to work on it.
Technically, of course.
Of course.
But and Ken has been with me on 64 of these. So boy, time flies, doesn't it, Ken?
It really does. Yep.
Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it sure has been. Well, very quickly tonight. Now, what we're going to be doing, we're kind of changing our format here on our broadcast. I hope you all are enjoying it. And please, if you have any comments or any observations about our format, please submit those to us because, like I said, we're trying to change things up a little bit, trying to make it a little more interesting. And move along as much as possible. We're sticking with the theme, though, of activism and what activism can I take through Convention of States. So that's still our theme. That's still what we're trying to focus on, and we will continue doing that. Now, what we're going to do, though, is, like I said, we're shifting our focus a little bit here. We're going to kind of focus on some national events, some items and topics in the national news, and then we're going to shift focus to Indiana and what's happening in Indiana, and introduce you to some people that are from COS Indiana. So that's gonna be kind of the overall focus of our change in format tonight. And as far as we'll get into that very shortly here. So Ken, I think I might also mention that our special guest tonight is Debbie Stewart, and Debbie's going to be coming on. She'll be in the Indiana focus part of our broadcast tonight. And in the national part of our broadcast, we've got two great volunteers here in Convention of States. And Brandon Garrett and Gary Harbaugh. Brandon's going to be talking about the southern border.
Ooh.
That's been in the news, hasn't it, Ken?
Well, in some news, in some areas of the news, it's in there.
Some news, yes. Well, and then Gary is going to be talking about the debt ceiling. Now,
wow.
That's been in the news too. So I'll tell you.
One area going up, the other one being torn down. I don't know what we're going to do here.
We've got some things to talk about tonight. And then Debbie, now when we bring Debbie on, Debbie's doing a constitutional literacy segment for us tonight. And she's going to be talking about international law. So
jam-packed schedule tonight, Dale.
We do. So let's get going here and see if I can get all my things lined up.
Buttons in a row.
I want to, we're going to bring Brandon on here very soon. And matter of fact, I think I'm going to bring Brandon on right now. Hello, Brandon.
Howdy, Dale.
Hey, Brandon.
Mr. Ken. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Brandon is one of our region captains. Just recently got appointed to region captain position.
Yes, that's correct.
And he's half of a husband and wife duo here in Convention Estates. His charming wife Stacy is our state events coordinator. So two young people coming in and taking on leadership roles in Convention Estates. We need more like this, don't we, Ken?
We sure do. We sure do.
Yeah.
Even though our us old guys have been around a while, it is good to see the new people coming in. The young people.
You old guys have been around.
I'm not far behind.
Got a little ways to go.
Brandon, you're way behind. Okay. All right. Okay. I wanted to show everyone let's see if I can find it here. A little intro to our national segment, and then I want to show a specific video pertaining to Brandon's particular topic tonight, the southern border. But this is how we're going to start introducing the national segment of our Well, that'll catch your attention, won't it?
Yeah, bringing the heat. I like it.
Should be awakened by now, that's for sure.
Well, let's get into what Brandon wants to talk about tonight. Brandon, did I hear you say that when you speak on topics like this, you call this Brandon's beef? Is this what you? Is this?
Well, yeah, we could. I guess that's a little tongue-in-cheek little thing you can call it, since it's a little bit of a rant, right?
That's right.
John's got his journal. I guess I can have my beef. So I got plenty. Trust me.
There you go. Okay. Well,
The question is, Brandon, do you like it well done, medium, or rare?
It should be brown it, turn it over, brown it, put it on a plate.
There you go. Okay.
Holy smokes.
Now you know how it's coming at you. Now you know
right.
about Brandon's
raw,
beef.
baby.
Raw, baby.
Oh my. All right. Brandon, I want to kick off your segment with a little clip here. This is a promo clip that Ken created to be used for promotion on various social media platforms, but I thought it was appropriate for what you're going to be talking about this evening. So let's take a look at this. It's very, very short.
In a matter of days. We could have a secure border in a matter of days. 100% secure, might be a little tougher. Got to get the infrastructure in place, got to get a wall in place. But if you change policy, which you could do with the stroke of a pen, with the leadership, you could change the policy, you could have a secure border immediately.
Good old Chip Roy.
That's an excellent clip, isn't it? Like I
You're
said,
bringing it.
Sure is.
I think that should attract some attention. So, Brandon, tell us what's on your mind.
So we're going to dive into what Chip's talking about, the border, or lack thereof, perhaps I should say.
Yeah.
As we get into that segment, though, I know we've got we're broadcast on several streaming platforms here. So no matter what platform you're on, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or, Instagram, Twitter, I don't even know where all the places. Just go ahead and smash that heart button, smash that like button, get that algorithm going for us. When you create that kind of engagement, it allows more people to see that, and obviously let you know that you like the content we're putting out. Also, if you are on any of those platforms and you're not following us, go ahead and click that follow button. And on YouTube, make sure you click the follow and the subscribe and the notification bell too. So quick poll for all of our viewers out there, because we've got people, all over the state that watch, and eventually it's going to be all over the nation from a little secret project I hear that Ken's working on. But just put in the comments in the chat, like where you're from. If you're from Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Greenwood, South Bend, like wherever you're at, just kind of put some stuff. Okay, so we got Knox County. Okay. We've got a couple people that are saying the Indianapolis. Yep. Okay. Fort Wayne. Yep. Okay. So just keep putting that kind of stuff in the chat. And I have you guys do that, one, for the engagement, but two, last week alone, roughly 83,000 illegal aliens across the southern border. That's
just the ones we know about, right?
Correct. That's the single highest week in history. That's about 12,000 per day. The reason I wanted you guys to put where you're from, Jeffersonville, Vincennes, Logansport. Okay, great. So I wanted to put that in context, and here's how we're going to do it. Okay, because you're going to see a meme going around on social media if you're on a platform that says, hey, that's enough people to fill Cowboy Stadium. Not all of us understand how big Cowboy Stadium is and that it holds that many people. Like, you just can't quite fathom it. So for context, that is the equivalent of the population of the smallest 170 towns in Indiana combined. Okay.
Wow.
And that is actually more than every single city in the state of Indiana except for 6. Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Evansville, Fishers, South Bend, Carmel. If you don't live in one of those cities, there is more illegal immigrants that just crossed the border last week than in your city.
Just last week. Just
last week.
That's amazing.
That is crazy. Hey, we got someone from Illinois, next to Illinois, Perrysville. Cool. Getting close to the border there. So that's a lot. Okay. Like, that's a lot. And here's the problem with that. When we start looking at this systemically and what that actually means, before we get off into the weeds about some other stuff, because it's a topic we could go really deep on, right? Okay. The immigration system itself, the court system, currently stands at the end of last year, roughly with a backlog of 2.1 million cases waiting to be heard. So through the first quarter of this year, and I researched all of this just as recently as today, these illegal aliens are being given court dates that are 2, 3, 5, 7 years out. I saw reports of court dates as far out as 2032 and 2035.
Really? I saw some at 2027.
Yes,
but I didn't.
And that's before the 3 million that's crossed at the end of all of 2022 plus this year. I mean, right. We've got people pouring across the border. The CBP's own data says that through August of last year, August actually represented the 18th consecutive month. 18th, and we're talking a year and a half straight of encounters exceeding 150,000. And it has not slowed down. It has not slowed down. So, if you are at all passionate about protecting the integrity of the United States, we have to talk about the border, because there is a cost to this. Okay. At the beginning of the year, just the net cost of illegal immigration to us, the United States, collectively is roughly $150 billion. Not exactly a small chunk of change, especially when we can't get several billion. I think I seen a report that roughly $10 billion could be used to fund armed security at every single school in the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder how much have we given to Ukraine?
We are about $110 billion in. 120, somewhere around in there.
We're closing in on the same amount almost, aren't we?
Yeah. So when you extrapolate that out, you're looking at each kind of illegal alien or subsequent unborn child costs the U.S. taxpayer about $8,700 annually across all of us. That's roughly what it is per illegal alien, but that only represents 17% of the actual cost and strain they put on the system. So you're talking roughly $50,000 to $52,000 of systemic strain, financial strain on our economy per illegal alien. And about 60% of those that come over, obviously they all end up, the vast majority end up working kind of in the underground economy. They're avoiding paying income tax because they're not here legally. And based on all the social programs we have, and oftentimes they're getting money from the government through tax credit programs.
Right.
Like, and this is to Ken's point, like this is stuff that you're not hearing about on the news. That's why the big focus of Brandon's Beef this week is just giving you the facts, giving you the data so you can understand. Like, hey, like if I come on and do anybody that knows me, like I keep it real, I keep it raw, I keep it relevant all the time. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat anything with you guys.
Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Right. That used to be a thing in the media. It's not so much anymore. Right. So when we look at, okay, let's look beyond the cost. I know there's another hot button topic, right? Fentanyl. We can't talk about the war without talking about fentanyl. Last year, the DEA seized enough fentanyl. The numbers will blow your mind. Okay, more than 50 million fentanyl-laced pills were seized. Just seized. That's what we took possession of, not what crossed, what seized. Right. And over 14,000 pounds of fentanyl powder. That is enough to kill 330, literally every single American. There's about 330 million Americans in the country. That is enough to kill 330 million Americans, every single one of us, and have enough fentanyl left over to kill about another 20. And that's just last year alone. Just last year alone. And if you think it does, so if you think it's not affecting us, it is. Just because we're not a border state, like fentanyl is pouring across the border. And I've been keeping my ear to that through different resources I have in the business world and just personal contacts. A lot of that, like I said, real raw relevant. Here we go. A lot of that is obviously all coming from the Mexican drug cartels, but the cartels are getting the necessary ingredients to make the fentanyl shipped from China. Yep. China is the CCP is literally shipping the components to the Mexican cartels, knowing that the cartels are going to send it here. We are in an indirect cold drug war with China because our border is wide open.
Simple invasion. Yep. Simple invasion.
I'm glad you said that word, Ken. You read my mind, sir.
Yep.
So I put all of that, and we've just barely grazed the surface of the immigration issue. But I wanted to start with all that one, so you guys have the information. Take that, call your Congress, call your representative, call your senator, blow up their email, blow up their phones, and say, hey, what are you doing to get the administration on board with closing our border? Squeaky wheel gets the oil. We have to have it done. But here's the biggest reason why I give you all of that context. Okay, I kind of moonlight as a Constitution coach. I just got my Constitution coach certification not too long ago from Patriot Academy. And this border crisis is a constitutional crisis, and here's why. Ken use the magic word, invasion. Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution states, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government, not GOP, okay, not that kind of Republican. We're talking about a constitutional republic, and that gets into the terminology of them trying to say we're a democracy. That's a beef for another day.
Right. But
every state in this union, a Republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against, what was that word, Ken?
Invasion.
And on the application of the legislature or of the executive against domestic violence.
Yeah. They say that every person knows somebody in their family that has Alzheimer's. How long will it take before every person in the country knows somebody in their family who has died from fentanyl?
That is a very, very valid question. And we are at this rate, we are probably 18 to 24 months
I'd say
from at least a second or third degree separation from a fentanyl overdose.
Yeah.
Well, isn't fentanyl officially the leading cause of death in the country now?
For certain age groups, yes.
For certain age groups.
For the teenage to, I can't remember the exact range, but like the late teenage to like 30-ish, it is the number one cause of death in the United States.
And still, all the numbers that you've given out, Brandon, which are very, very informative. Am I correct in saying these numbers are based on what we know?
That is correct.
What we don't know,
that's scary.
Is also the scary part, and how much worse it probably is because of the gotaways and what we don't know.
Exactly right. And the founders did that as a way to guarantee each state of the union was protected against invasion from foreign nationals. Like, we didn't even talk about that. It's not just people from South America that are pouring over the border. We have communist Chinese nationals that are pouring in. Just last week, they've caught people connected to ISIS. This is a huge issue. It's designed to prevent that invasion from drug cartels, from this uncontrolled, just completely out of control.
Well, Brandon, a question I have, that with the research you've done, why in the world are we allowing Chinese police stations in our country? What is the purpose of a Chinese police station?
That is a very interesting rabbit hole we can go down sometime.
That's a whole nother Brandon beef.
That's another whole round table, sounds like.
Yeah, right. We may even have to send out tinfoil hats to everybody so we can have that conversation. You never know. But, simply at the end of the day, because I know you guys got other guests, and it looks like we've had great participation in the chat, guys. I see Scott, I see Dale, Connie, everybody. Thanks for that. Remember, smash that heart button, smash that like button every time you see us on the broadcast. But plain and simple, if we can't control our borders, we can't defend our national sovereignty. Mm-hmm. It really is that simple. Like, we cannot say we are the United States if we cannot even defend our borders. And I would challenge all of you, call your state representative, call your senator, get them on the horn about this. This has to be a topic that we talk about, because I guarantee you, all these people on the left that want open borders, it's only to their benefit. It's going to dilute the voter pool, because they're going to give them all amnesty. Then they're all going to want to vote Democrat. Like, that's the bigger nefarious purpose. But I guarantee you, every single one of them lock their doors at night.
Right.
I guarantee you, a vast majority of them live in a gated community.
Yeah.
Right.
Think of that what you will.
One of the things I heard initially too, Brandon, was that one of the initial plans of letting just these hordes of illegal immigrants into our southern border, and predominantly Texas, was because they wanted to turn the state of Texas blue.
Yep.
And it's a perfect plan to do it.
Yeah.
So
you're absolutely right. When you think about the sheer number in the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, we're talking probably north of 5 million, 6 million in the last 3 years. Even if only a third, actually go through the process. Well, they don't even have to go through the process, because some states are going to start allowing them to vote and all kinds of other stuff. They're all going to vote Democrat. That's enough to put the election out of reach for conservatives. Just something to think about. Get on those phones.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right,
Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you.
Good stuff.
All right, Ken. Well,
that was raw. That was beef raw.
But that was very good. That was very good. And
Yep.
we're gonna try and do more and more of this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now, speaking of something very raw, we're gonna bring Gary. I'm just kidding. We're gonna bring Gary Harbaugh on here, and Gary's gonna be talking about another issue very much in the news today, and that is the debt ceiling. So let's bring Gary on here. Hello, Gary.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Gary.
Thanks for having me on.
Good to have you.
Good to have you tonight. Now, Gary, your topic this evening is the debt ceiling. Now, I can't imagine what could be the possible problem with that. We just always just expand the debt ceiling, right? And we just move on. So I'll let you address that if you want to take a shot at that.
Yeah. If you want to put up that debt clock, Dale, I think that'd be.
Do we have to look at that? Do you think? Okay.
I think you should look at that while I talk.
Now you should. I think you should preface that, Gary, that with a warning that if you've got young children in the room, they should not. You should close their eyes. They should not look at this.
They'll start crying if they realize their share of this debt.
What they're going to be responsible for, actually. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
You want me to make that larger?
Sure, make it larger, and then I'll start my little.
Okay, well, then the three of us will disappear on this, but we haven't gone anywhere. We'll still be there. Yeah. There we go.
Raising the debt ceiling. Raising the debt ceiling is a game. The game is kick the can. Not to be confused with the children's game of the same name. The object of this game is to kick the debt ceiling can as far down the road as possible. It's been played about 90 times in about 100 years. The red team wants to kick the can to the right side of the road. That may mean a little less spending or maybe more defense spending. The blue team wants to kick the can as far as they can to the left side of the road, which could mean more social spending or just more spending of any kind, or maybe cuts to defense spending. Whichever team has more leverage will determine whether the can is kicked more to the left or more to the right. If the two teams cannot reach an agreement, then we can have the spectacle of a so-called government shutdown, which doesn't really shut down the government. Then both teams enlist their friends in the media to blame the other team. Whoever is perceived to be winning the blame game will come out on top. Some of you may have thought that government was here to do things like solve problems. The main purpose of government now is to keep the game going. That is, keep the government going by kicking the financial problems that we have further into the future. For them, that is, the people in power, as long as the game keeps going, they win. If the situation ever blows up, and it eventually will, we just don't know when, that will be bad for the people in power at that time. However, they will use their friends in the media to blame anyone and everyone else for the blow up. You may be wondering, how do we, the sane people, stop this game? Convention of States has a solution, and it's not to limit the debt, because we have about 100 years of proof that that won't work. One of the subject matters for a Convention of States is limits on federal spending. Right now, there is no practical limit on federal spending because the United States has enormous borrowing power. And while that is beginning to be restrained, the Federal Reserve Bank simply creates all the new money needed that cannot be borrowed, and thus the spending goes on unchecked. If we, the people, can agree through a Convention of States to limit federal spending and begin to pay down the national debt, then perhaps we can prevent the blow-up that I mentioned earlier. If not, it will happen, and it's likely to become far more financially painful than we likely realize, because it will probably entail the US dollar losing its status as the world's reserve currency. And that really needs to be a topic for a future soapbox.
Well put, Gary. Well put.
Yeah.
You know, I think the our obviously COS and that segment that one of the three tiers that we are looking to have you know, when we get our convention called is probably the strongest one we have to really enforce the border, I think, on the other hand, is one of those that I just feel, especially after listening to Brandon, I don't know. We have the direct answer. We have a comment that I wanted to put up based on that, because the question was asked. Let me see if I can find it here. The comments are scrolling along. So John Graves basically had said this. He had said, "How can we force the hand of our national legislatures to impeach those who are responsible for the border crisis?" Like I said, I think we have a much better handle going in and getting a financial limit put down, but impeaching these rascals, I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? I don't see how we get that done.
Yeah, a convention of states can put limits on spending. As far as closing the border, and that would be a constitutional limit. As far as closing the border, I think that really depends on elections, because somehow we have to elect people that are willing to toe the line, and we're not doing it. And at least the people that are in Congress now, the people who fund their campaigns, I think they kind of like this illegal immigration. It's pushing wages down for especially the working class people. And it's bad for America, but it's sometimes good for their donors or, their supporters.
I agree. I think there's benefits being realized here. Otherwise, something would be done on this, on these kind of things. I think both the border issues, the immigration issues, and the debt ceiling and the debt, they all fall within that government overreach. Part of our resolution that we want to address, and I think it doesn't make any difference which party's in control, which party's in has the administration, or it doesn't seem to make any difference. So I think Gary's right. There's benefits being realized that we may not see and understand, but somebody's benefiting from all this, somebody or some bodies, and we just don't see it.
Yeah.
Or something would be done about this.
No, I know the term limits will certainly help too, but that's going to take some time. And I think at this point, the you're saying somebody. I think it's a group of elitists that basically have been in control for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gary, I can remember we were chatting before we started the broadcast tonight. We were chatting about the debt clock. I can remember clearly when I came into COS, came in after the Bush administration, and the Bush administration racked up $5 trillion in national debt, and we thought how terrible that was. Then Obama doubled that, and it's gone up every year thereafter. To where we're now over $31 trillion in debt. I don't know how I don't know how people live knowing that. Like I said, there's got to be some people benefiting from this. There's got to be some benefits somewhere.
Well, there are certainly benefits from the spending. Every dollar of federal spending benefits somebody. And if there's ever discussion about really cutting any spending, the news media goes out and finds some sob story about some person who's going to be hurt. And it's, we're balancing the budget on the backs of the poor, or the this or the that. And, the political will is just attacked anytime there is serious talk about reducing spending. And so that's why we have to have a limit, so that Congress has to set priorities and give the spending to the things that have priorities, and the things that are not priorities just simply going to have to be we can't spend that.
Gary, I did like your analogy of the red team and the blue team, and which direction the can goes, and I thought that was very, very good. And this thing about government shutdown and when they talk about our government defaulting, that's just scare tactics.
Fear mongering, yeah, fear mongering is a big tool that's being used in everything.
It always is. It always is.
Yeah.
I remember in the Rush days, whenever this occurred, Rush would really harp on it, and I thought he explained it very well as to what was really going on. But yeah, I remember those times with him.
Well, I think what's become evident just in the last couple of years is, and it's compounding the whole situation, is the fact that I think we've all discovered that we have a two-tiered justice system in this country. And until we get that fixed and are able to literally start putting some people in jail, this is not going to stop anytime soon.
No. All right.
We need that.
Gary?
Say that again, Gary.
What'd you say?
We need a convention of states.
We do.
There you go. That's
No question.
perfect way to wrap it up, Gary. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank
Gary.
you.
Good to see you.
Boy, those are been two great segments, huh, Ken?
There's a lot of topics and a lot of time wrapped up in all that we've been talking about, Dale. We're just scratching the surface.
Yeah. Well, now we're going to bring on the really hard stuff here. I mean, this is the lady that's going to. This is the teacher, right? Okay, Ken, you got to be on your best behavior.
Be on my best behavior. I don't want to sit in the corner or have to write. I will not. I will participate in class 100,000 times on the chalkboard.
Okay. All right. Speaking of chalkboards, let's.
Good segue, huh?
Let's a good segue. Let's bring Debbie in here.
There she is.
Hey there.
I have to give you more homework, Ken.
Give him more homework, Debbie.
Pile it on, Debbie. Pile it on.
Additional assignment for Ken because you're special.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you guys too. Good segments tonight. Very good.
They have been good, haven't they?
Yeah.
And this one will, I'm sure, be just as good, if not better, huh?
Oh, well, of course.
Of course. Well,
like they said, we saved the best for last, right? Right, Debbie?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, Debbie, you said you wanted to talk about international law tonight, right?
Yeah, I really do. And we did this. We talked about this a year and a half ago, maybe on this show. Did a little teaching, but I feel like international law has. We have all of our domestic laws here in our country, and we follow those laws. And if we do, we get rewarded, and we get to run around free. If we choose to disobey the laws, we can get in some trouble and get some tickets or land ourselves in jail or whatever it may be. But international law are those laws between nations and between countries, or like the United Nations has international law for lots of different countries. And because we're becoming more and more global, I think it would be really good if we become more and more aware of how international law works and what's going on with treaties, and not just what's in the treaty, but what's the current push for treaties, and what are they really trying to do with all these treaties? And it's kind of like, I would compare it to our Congress in Washington, D.C. They'll pass a law and they'll call it the FAIR Act, the Fair Labor Act. And then when you read it, it's absolutely the opposite of what the title says. So it's very interesting. So some of these world treaties and this international law that we're going to talk about doesn't actually accomplish the things that you think it's supposed to accomplish. So you really have to read between the lines to figure out what it is they're doing, and what is the motivation behind the treaty too. To kind of read between the lines. So that's international law. We're dealing with a lot of global things now. Our country is involved in so many different global things that international law has become more and more important. There is an International Court of Justice, And if you're supposed to follow these international laws, and if you don't, you can go to court. But right now, this International Court of Justice is not doesn't always have a way to force you into obeying the international laws or treaties. So that's kind of a little bit about international law and why I think it's so important. I really feel like people need to seek out and learn a little bit more about how global governance and international law works, and how we can be involved at the state and local level with that. And we'll talk about some ideas at the end too. I'll kind of throw those in there at the end. But
I did want to ask, is Hunter Biden involved in international law? I'm just
right. Don't get me started on that, because
another whole rabbit hole there.
What day goes by where we don't hear something about Hunter Biden? I mean, he's the most popular president's son ever in the world because of so much corruption we keep hearing about, but nothing ever happens. So,
but that's not that he has nothing to do with international law here, is what you're saying. Okay.
Right. He doesn't, but he's probably wanted in other countries for doing things wrong too. So who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay. All right.
But so let's talk a little bit about why is international law, how can it be a threat to self-governance? Well, in the past, we had international laws or treaties, a lot of times treaties, right, where we would come into agreement with countries, and it would be over things like, okay, at the end of the war, how are we going to do, we're going to work out peace deals, right? Or we're going to work out trade deals. And so it was like how one country would treat another country in certain situations. And then we had our own domestic laws here. But the difference is now the United Nations human rights treaties that they're pushing in the last 30 years, many of those treaties are trying to change our own domestic laws. So they're not really dealing with how we're treating it. They have nothing to do with how we treat other countries. They're telling us how to parent our kids, what to do with our health, how we're supposed to treat women and men and things like that. So they're trying to change our domestic policies at the state level and at the federal level. A lot of it happens at the state level. So they're tinkering in what we do here. And if they can enforce these treaties and these laws in our nation, they literally can change us from the inside out and implement the things they want to do because they've superseded our constitutional laws. Mm-hmm. Well, how does that work? Well, if you go to the 6th article of the Constitution, Section 2, there's something called the Supremacy Clause. And the Supremacy Clause says that the Constitution and other laws in our nation and treaties are the supreme law of the land. See, most nations might sign on to a treaty, and if they sign on a treaty, it's no big deal. They kind of have an intent, but then they actually have to go pass a law that says they're actually going to follow the treaty. So signing onto the treaty of them is really not a big deal, okay? Or becoming a party to the treaty. So there's two things you have to do when there's a treaty. You sign on, you become a signatory, which means I kind of intend to follow this, but I'm not there yet. But then you become a party when you ratify it. And when you're, like for us in the United States, our Senate, we have to get a 2/3 vote to ratify that treaty. So there's a lot of treaties out there that we've signed, but we haven't ratified them. So we don't have to follow them, right? But we know they're out there. So that's kind of how that works. So what is the threat to self-governance? Now they want to change our domestic policies. We have things like the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, things like that, where our sovereignty and our laws are being pushed aside so they can bring in their global laws and run the world. That's basically, if I had to sum it all up, that's how it's happening. Yeah. So it is a big threat to us. If our Congress were somehow to ratify some of these treaties, we still have a backup here at the state and local level. We'll talk about that kind of as our last point. All right. So let's go to the next point, I think was treaties, right? We'll talk a little bit more detail about those.
Right.
So one of the treaties is like the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And that's a thing that talks about how you're supposed to parent your children. And so they want to implement that worldwide. It's from the United Nations. 193, I think, countries have signed on to it. The only two who haven't is us and Somalia. And so we're the only ones holding out on this treaty where we've signed it, but we haven't ratified it. And so that would allow the government to step in, the global government, to tell you how you should parent your children, what your children were allowed to have and not have. They could step in and help you with your discipline, things like that. That's kind of where the global government is trying to go right now. And a lot of countries are already doing this. I won't get into the details of that. There's other ones, like there's one called the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW treaty. And that is interesting. They say it's for equity for women, but they literally want to disarm any country that they're saying that in order for families to be equitable husband and wives, they want to change the role of the husband, change the role of the wife. You just have to watch television for an hour each night, a sitcom, to see what that going on. Right. But part of the treaty, it talks about, if you read the fine print, oh, well, we have to disarm you, nuclear disarmament, you shouldn't have weapons, all of that, because women have to have a better place. So what disarming people has to do, what that has to do with women, I have no idea. But that's one of those things, again, where this is the name of the treaty, but when you get down to the fine print, that has nothing to do. That's their agenda they're trying to push.
Does the World Health Organization, now you did a piece on that not too long ago.
Yeah. Is
that part of this too? I mean,
it's a great segue, Dale. That was next right there, and then my next.
Oh, really?
Thank you. Yeah, because so what's happening with these governing bodies is they're becoming, not only are they becoming more powerful, and they're trying to become more powerful, but since they are the governing body, they're saying they're going to become more powerful. So they're the board that says we're the people to go to. And they keep saying we need more power, and people need to not just kind of go along, but it needs to be enforced, what we're saying. So by the minute, they're actually, the international health regulations, which comes out of the World Health Organization, they are asking countries to kind of help them do amendments for this whole international health regulations. And I went and I actually looked at the document, the original document. You can find it out on who.int. But it says some of the words that they are scribbling out of there, where they had words like non-binding, or to the extent possible, or you should do something. They're replacing non-binding with binding, or they're just taking it out. They're taking out to the extent possible. So like, you just have to do it. And you can see the lines crossing out the words in the document. They take out the word you should do something, and they're saying you shall do it. So by the minute, I mean, every month this body keeps meeting, they just become more and more powerful, and they're the ones giving themselves the power. It's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Nobody can seem to be able to give them pushback right now. So yeah, there's just stuff like that going on. So right now with the World Health Organization, the big thing they're working on now is they're amending the international health regulations. And then the second thing is that they are coming up with what they call a new pandemic policy. It started out to be called the Pandemic Treaty, but they know that the United States has to ratify a treaty. So they're changing the name to a Pandemic Accord. So they're saying they can bypass our Senate and still, we can still ratify it without the Senate. Oh. And so while they're doing that, though, this whole thing is they're saying that basically the World Health Organization has the full right, and actually the Director General, his name is Tedros, he can declare anything he wants, a pandemic or an emergency, a worldwide emergency. It can be climate change. It could be it got too hot, it got too cold, an iceberg melted, whatever it is. He can call the shot. And then when he does that, then all the policies that go with the World Health Organization and this pandemic treaty are going to be implemented worldwide. Now, the question is, that takes away our sovereignty, right? That's very unconstitutional for us. So now what can we do about that, right? Well, we can take a look at our state and local governments, and we can push back at that level. South Carolina is a great example. They came up with a law. They're working on passing a law right now that says the World Health Organization is null and void in our state and any of their policies. We know that we locally can, we can go. I want to encourage everybody, go talk to your governor, your representative, your senator, your mayor, the people around you, and say, hey, do not go along with this World Health Organization. Do not go along with this pandemic treaty. or accord that they're trying to pass, because they're to the point where they're saying that they can tell you what medicine you need to take and what you can't, when you need to get vaccinated, when you cannot. And this is a quote by, his name is David Spangler. He's one of the leaders of the UN, and he said, no one will enter the New World Order unless he or she will make a pledge to worship Lucifer. No one will enter the New Age unless he will take a Luciferian initiation.
Really? Oh gosh.
I mean, it's right in the Bible, but this guy's just coming right out and saying it. I think they kind of pushed him aside, like they didn't. I think they didn't want him saying that, but the quote's out there now. He said it, and we know what's going on there. But it all ties into the Bible too, right? But we can push back at the local. Our sheriff is, he puts his hand in the Bible and swears an oath to our Indiana state constitution. And our sheriff is strong. He'll push back on, principles that are unconstitutional. But again, if we, the people, don't get off the couch, we don't get out there and talk to our people, demand to have a meeting with your senator and your representative, and go talk to your governor and your mayor and people that are in authority, and let them know, hey, I know what's going on, and I'm going to expect you to push back on this.
Well, Debbie, that brings up a good point, and I want to bring in a comment from, we have lots of comments tonight. It's hard to keep up with it, really, but I want to bring in a comment from a viewer that is talking about a little bit, and I think everybody feels the frustration of what do we do? What we need to do? We need to act. We need to act now. We need to do something. What can we do? All that falls into the program that we're talking about. But let me bring up this comment, because I think it leads to a discussion about what can we do and where do we get started and so on. Our friend here, Jill, says that she's talking about podcasts and shows that really don't do anything but than inform, and she's talking about informing being good, but she's saying that obviously we need to be proactive, and she's wanting the people in our country to actually take a stand, and she's seeing the urgency in that. And it's kind of two-pronged. I mean, obviously it is good to inform, because I think one of the battles we're fighting at this point is a very large base of uninformed people in our country. So educating and informing people is part of our job, because the media has been squashing information for so long that we have, I'm going to use Brandon's raw approach tonight. We have a bunch of sheep that are in this country that are following the direction of this path that's taking us into communism. So I bring this comment up as you mentioned. One of the ways of getting involved, obviously, is we have to be heard. It is important to get active and to let act on our legislators, get them to know that we're on to this, and we expect them to do things. But I don't know if you've got any other comments. I mean, I wanted to bring that comment in because I thought it was important that we talk about the urgency. And again, we're asking people to get involved with Convention of States as a way to get active.
Right.
And obviously that's a right now it's a bigger picture to get to the convention. But in the meantime, there are things we can do, and we do need to, in order to grow these ranks and do something, we need to grow our ranks bigger, and we have to be heard and inform and educate. So it all kind of is intertwined, I think. But if you got any follow up on that, I wanted to bring that in. And she had another comment, which I'll deal with, when we're done with your segment. But that was one that I thought should be brought up.
Yeah, that's a great comment. She's right. There's such an urgency right now. The purpose of information is for transformation, because if not, it's just information. So we inform people so they take it and they go make change. But we all have to play our part. We have to do that. We have to be willing to go out and talk to people, and to push back on people and say, hey, I'm not voting for you if you're going to do this, those kinds of things, and meet with those people that are in authority. And the more and more of us that do that, the more they're like, wow, they're watching what I'm doing. They're paying attention to things. And your comment about communism, if you go out and look at the list of United Nations organizations and who the heads are, China's in a lot of the head positions. And these guys, if they're not from China, they're tied. Like this Tedros guy, he's a diehard CCP guy. He's a sworn member of the CCP. He's leading up the World Health Organization. And so, I see a pattern here, these people. Yeah. So that was a great comment. And not only that, but I think by the end of this month, there are going to be some decisions made by the World Health Organization. And their plan is to implement this pandemic treaty / accord a year from now, May of 2024, like implement the whole thing. And if you think about it, next year is an election year. What's
Mhm.
been happening in election year? So we could probably expect some kind of another pandemic that's coming down the road. I
Sure.
mean, none of us knows for sure, but I sure see signs of it.
Yeah.
But I will say this, Senator Johnson did introduce legislation, Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, to protect the American sovereignty against the World Health Organization. And basically, which is so dumb, but we have to do it, he's introducing the No WHO Pandemic Preparedness Treaty without Senate Approval Act. Like they shouldn't be allowed to do a treaty without Senate approval anyways. But it's sad, but he's doing the right thing. He's saying, we are not going to do that without Senate approval, which is what our Constitution says anyways. But so many people just say, oh, our Constitution isn't, good anymore. We are a constitutional republic, so we do run by the Constitution.
Right. Well, I have a follow-up comment from Jill I want to post as well, because I think obviously it shows frustration and some people actually really do get angry, but Jill followed up that question was, do you think meeting with them and placing a phone call is going to stop them? She says think again. And I guess my comment to that basically would be that numbers are important, and if you don't have numbers, you're not going to get anything done. So to a certain degree, I understand what she's saying. I think we've seen enough of the approach of making a phone call, sending a letter, sending an email. It seems like we're stuck in this rut. And to a certain degree, she's right. But if we get the numbers of educated and informed people to get involved, and we show up at the State House in large numbers, well, that makes a difference. So to a certain degree, it's a little of this and a little of that. But I mean, we want to do it in a way that basically is the correct way to do it, without having to take up arms. I mean, everybody will talk about a civil war, but whether that comes to fruition, I mean, that's a possibility. I don't say it wouldn't be, but a sure amount of people would work.
We've seen this happen many times just right here in the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
In legislative debates, you get a couple busloads from a certain group come down and testify against a particular piece of legislation or for it, and it can change it. It can be the deciding factor on that piece of legislation going forward or not. And we've also encountered this in COS nationally through our Telepatriot program. We've encountered legislation pending in other states, and all of a sudden a last minute telephone blast by an opposing group in that state turned the vote against it. And I'm talking about against our resolution. So, Jill, these phone calls, these communications, these telling our representatives, they are important. And like Ken said, numbers, I think, is what really catches the attention. And that's where we here in Indiana, we've got 67,000 supporters of Convention of States just here in Indiana, close to 5.5 million across the country. So
if we could get a quarter of them to show up at the State House, we'd make a huge difference. So
we can make a big difference. Yeah. That's right.
I mean, I think we should do everything that we possibly can to avoid any type of violence. Obviously, that's not where we want to go.
We're not talking. We don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, but at this point, the only way that I see to really counteract that is to get the biggest grassroots army available in the country to basically stand up and say we've had enough and it's not going to go any further.
Well, guys, time is getting away from us. We need to wrap things up. Debbie, have you got anything else you wanted to close on or anything?
No, I think that was perfect. Just, what we need to get out there and do it. And just, the liberal tends to, the left tends to do that, get rallied up about things. I think they probably get paid some money here and there to do it. Conservatives want to do it because they care about it. But we do. We need to keep trying, keep pushing, and never give up.
There you go. Debbie, thank you very much. hope to have you back in June sometime. So don't go away.
Sounds good. We'll see you then. Thank
All
you.
right.
Good
Thank
to see
you,
you.
Debbie. Always good to have Debbie Stewart on. Ken, judging from the number of comments that I see up here, this is a record broadcast.
I think we're talking about record topics here.
Yeah. This is a record broadcast as far as comments are concerned. And so you've been busy tonight monitoring those. So
we've had some help. Brandon's been helping in the chat room, so it's good to have some extra help tonight because it was extra busy. But I think it was there were some important points that were made, and again, we want to do more than just inform and educate. We do want to get people involved.
Well, I think I think our format's paying off here, our change in format, and I think we're going to continue and make it even better. So,
well, and that's an interesting point because this was an earlier comment by Jill. I told you I was going to bring it up at the end. She was mentioning that it was great to have us talking to people and informing people, but she said it'd be nice to be able to get on the program herself. So maybe we should invite people to send us an email, and we'll have a little pre-program, and if we can get some of our viewers on, I'm all for that, Dave.
Sure. So, yeah. Now, speaking of sending us your contact information, Jill, this is how you get it to us. Send us an email, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. And now that's for anybody that has any afterthoughts, comments, or questions. Feel free to reach out to us. Ken and I monitor that inbox every day. So raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Well, Ken, let's wrap things up here. I want to just let everyone know that the fourth Monday of every month, we change the format of our broadcast, and we do what we call a roundtable, and that's basically a panel discussion. So next Monday evening, the 22nd of May, 7 p.m., same time, same station, will be our roundtable, and we got another good topic, I think, Ken, for the roundtable this month, and that is the runaway convention lie.
Sounds like another good one.
I think it ought to be a good one. Ought to be an interesting one. So,
yeah, I agree.
And as a matter of fact, Debbie Stewart's going to be on part of that panel that night, as well as Brandon and Gary, two of our guests tonight. So they'll be on there, and you and myself.
And maybe the round table might be a good place to bring on people like Jill who want to get on and have their voice heard.
Yeah. So I think that's a great idea. Yep. I just want to also let everybody know now. Whoop, that's the wrong one. Coming up on the 29th, the Monday following the roundtable, of course, is Memorial Day, and so Ken, we're going to have to line up since it's the holiday. We all want to take advantage of the holiday, so we'll be lining up a best of broadcast, one of our better broadcasts. So Ken, we need to get working on setting that up. Okay.
Sure.
Maybe this one ought to be the. Maybe we ought to replay this one. I don't know.
Could be. Yep.
But anyway, so everyone keep that in mind that on May 29th, Memorial Day, that will be a best of COS Indiana Live. Well, Ken, I think that's it. Time-wise, I think we're right at the end here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I hope you have enjoyed it. We have certainly had like I said, we've had a record evening here this evening. So I hope it seems to me like a lot of people enjoyed our broadcast, and we'll try and do more of what we've done tonight. So,
and like Brandon said, hit that like and subscribe buttons and get our program out there.
There you go. All right, everyone. Have a good evening. Good night. Good night, Ken.